Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very good evening to our beloved lecturer, Madam Mursyam Kamariah binti Musa. We are from Group 3. We'll be presenting to you the question, which is application rules in ascertaining beneficiaries in fixed and discretionary trust. Our group consists of Nurul Nabila binti Fadli, myself, Nur Ainatul Nadia binti Zainuddin, Tengku Munirah binti Abdul Karim, Nurul Farahanim binti Saifuddin, and last but not least, Nur Ilya Nabila binti Anwar. I will pass to the next presenter.
Moving on to the introduction part, trust is where a person has the property rights that holds or is bound to exercise for, or on behalf of another, or for the accomplishments of some purposes. He is said to preserve property rights in trust for the other, or for that purpose, he will be called as trustee. In trust, there are three certainties that need to be fulfilled before the trust can come into an action. The three certainties are certainty of intention, certainty of object, and certainty of subject matter. Under three certainties, certainty of intention refers to words that is used to convey the intention must be sufficiently expressive, even though there is no requirement to have specific words to create a trust. Any clear language can create trust to show an intention to build a trust. Certainty of subject matter refers to a trustee who needs to know precisely which property that he holds a trust onto for him to be able to benefit the beneficiaries. Lastly, certainty of object that will enable a specific person to benefit from a trust. In regards to human beneficiaries, this rule must exist for court to be able to act on the degree of performance on them.
Now, moving on to the next point, which is the basic principle of creating the trust. There are three elements that must be fulfilled to create a valid trust. As stated in the case of knight versus knight, firstly, there must be certainty of intention. The next element is there must be certainty of subject matter. And the last one refers to the certainty of the object. So, in this video, I'll be talking about the topic of the beneficiary principle. The general rule is that trust is valid if the beneficiary is a human being, which is the beneficiary principle in which the court can decree performance. In the case of Maurice versus Bishop of Durham, trust can only be enforceable if there are beneficiaries who can enforce the trust, but the restriction does not apply to charitable trust. The judgment of the court held that the trust created was not valid as there is no one to enforce the trust. However, there are 5 exceptions to the general rule classified under the case of re and the court, which does not require human beneficiaries. The setting up the trust for the erection of monuments or grave, the trust for the sale of masses, the trust for the maintenance of particular animals, trust for unincorporated associations, and also miscellaneous cases. For instance, trust is created for the benefit of the public.
The definition of fixed trust is explained in absurdity and vagueness, which meant the beneficiaries are ascertainable and their interests are fixed, with no discretion on trustee or other beneficiaries to alter the group or their value of interest. In fixed trust, we apply complete list test, which is laid down in IRC and Broadway Cottages Trust, which is, in order for a trust to be a good trust, the selector needs to draw up a complete list of the objects, and if he could not come up with a complete list, the trust is void of uncertainty. The complete list of beneficiaries is important, especially when the trust needs to be divided equally, as the equal share cannot be ascertained unless the precise number of beneficiaries is known. The effect of unascertainable trust is a trust is vitiated when the whereabouts of the beneficiaries are not known. It is important to ascertain the beneficiaries as it falls under three certainties that must be fulfilled in order for a private express trust to be valid. Next, we are going to discuss the issues in fixed trust. The first issue is list fluctuation. The list of the beneficiaries might fluctuate, where it might be increased by a newborn or decreased by death or maybe the existence of unknown people who fits the class, therefore opening the non-ended list of beneficiaries. And even if difficulties and impracticalities would arise due to the fluctuation, but it should not be allowed to stand in the way if trust can still be executed in any possibilities, as stated in Kilroy and Parker. The second issue is Benjamin order, where the trustees will be allowed to distribute property to the ascertained beneficiaries while waiting for the balance of the list, provided that the former will undertake to compensate the latter pari passu according to their appropriate share when they reappear. Trustees can inform the beneficiaries of their entitlement by taking alternative to publish an advertisement in London Gazette. Another argument is on the maximum lease, where it is explained that it is adequate to have the majority of the lease so that the trust could be divided, and the only part that fails is the uncertain part of the lease. Due to the issues that we've discussed before, the court is open to the flexibility of the complete list, but with wisdom and prudence in order to allow the court to put all effort to enforce the trust. A meaning should be given whenever it is possible, and a device could not be held void for uncertainty without absolute necessity. The effect of unascertainable beneficiaries is laid down in Bishop and Durham, that trust must be able to be controlled and executed by the court in order to be valid. If the beneficiaries are unascertainable, the trust might be impossible to execute and cannot be controlled by the court.
The definition of discretionary trust is a trust for the benefits of one or more beneficiaries. The trustee is given the flexibility to decide who shall benefit and what fund will be provided. The beneficiary has no right to the funds, and they have no right to claim or demand funds from the trust. The distributions of funds is entirely at the discretion of the trustee. At first, the test that was used for discretionary trust was the same as the fixed trust, which is the complete ascertained test, also known as the complete list test. However, this kind of test cannot be used for discretionary trust, as there are more potential beneficiaries for discretionary trust. These situations leads to a new methods of test used for discretionary trust, named class accessible test, also known as is or is not test. In this test, the potential beneficiary needs to show their qualifications and fit within the object descriptions. This test was more accessible than the complete ascertained test, because if a person failed to prove that they are the potential beneficiary, then the trust does not feel uncertainty. It is only the individual who is not entitled to be considered to receive the trust property. The issue was illustrated by the fact that McPhail was sent back to the High Court in order to determine whether the terms relative and dependence made the trust void for conceptual uncertainty. Although the trust was upheld, the judge gave very different view. Stamlord John took the literal approach that the is or is not test could only be satisfied if it could be said of every potential claimant that they were or were not within the class. On the other hand, such Lord George decided that the class test is only concerned with conceptual certainty and not evidential certainty. He also thought that the burden of proof was on the person claiming to be within the class. This might be disadvantageous to individuals who cannot prove their entitlements. Megan Lord George adopted a middle position. He held that the conceptual certainty alone is insufficient and that some degrees of evidential certainty is required. Refer to the case Tan Sri Dr. M. Mahadevan versus Dr. Jayalakshmi Ratnavali. Ratnavali was dead and had left a will and mentioned the 8th beneficiary, which is his wife, mother, and 6 children. Both the testator's wife and mother has passed away, and the trustee of Ratnavali's will had not exercised their discretions regarding the distributions of the property as provided in the wills. The respondent in this case is the remaining 6 children, and they applied to terminate the trust created under Ratnavali's will and want the property to be distributed equally among the respondents. The court held that the beneficiary under a discretionary trust does not have an immediate right to the trust property. The court will only look at the constructions of the wills and the testator's intentions in the will. Even though the testator gave all his property to the 8 beneficiaries, the trustees ought to exercise their discretions in dividing the properties as they deem because the will had created a discretionary trust. Lastly, the court also ruled that the discretionary trust does not give rise to disempower upon the beneficiary's death, as there was no provision regarding this in the will.
In conclusion, fixed trusts can come into existence if they fulfill 3 certainties. The 3 certainties are certainty of intention, certainty of object, and certainty of subject matter. In defining the certainty of object, the beneficiaries must be affirmed and identified to receive the benefit from the trust created. The beneficiary must be defined as certain or capable of being ascertained as a charitable trust. A trust that fails to address the beneficiaries correctly will be rendered void. Therefore, it is essential for a trust to define the beneficiaries clearly. Failure to establish such an element will give the court a hard time in showing whether the beneficiary had exercised his power properly. In a fixed trust, the settlor has already outlined how the property is to be divided between the beneficiaries, and trustee has no authority to change the share. However, in a discretionary trust, the trustee has the power to divide the property as they see fit. If no certainty of the subject can be established, the property will be held by the trustee for the settlor on the resulting trust. Thus, it is vital to have a listed name of beneficiaries to avoid more dispute in the future. That's all from us. Thank you so much for lending us your ears. We wish you all have a good day.